I liken it to have a passport. So if you have your own passport, you go seamlessly from country to country. They're not holding your information. You have your passport. You walk through countries. That's what this Zonafide digital wallet does for people.
Your first baby, you're always so depressed. It's so ugly. Right? So ugly.
Whether you are on YouTube or iTunes, welcome to the very first official episode of 360 Decentral, where we give you the opportunity to get to know the people behind a specific blockchain project. So today's interview will actually be with Paul and Salena Worrall of Zonafide. Zonafide is a digital wallet for securing activities. Now that might seem a little bit vague at first. However, give the first interview a bit of a look and you'll get a far better idea of these specific use cases. Here is a great deal of identity protection and fraud prevention. But Paul and Salena were kind enough to give me a great deal of content to work with. The conversation was fantastic and actually ended up being extremely compelling. So this interview will be broken into two separate parts. Interview 1 will be going over the project itself, whereas interview 2 will give you a far deeper understanding of especially Paul in this case, who he is as a person, and the journey that has actually brought them to creating Zonafide in the first place. But without further ado, welcome to the first episode of 360 Decentral.
Okay, Andy. Well, if I give you a little bit of background, maybe because it's not something we've built in the last few months. Yeah. I basically was working for JP Chase as sort of a lead architect, which is an investment bank, global investment bank out of the States, if people don't know. And in late 2013, we had identity theft in the family. And we then found that we've got quite a few friends and neighbors that all have various forms of incident like that. Because I'm in technology, because I'm in banking, everyone came to me and said, Paul, surely you can solve that problem. And being a technology guy, I love solving problems, but I knew that was a difficult nut to crack. So I did decide to leave JP Chase, took some funds with me, and then started looking at how I could solve that problem. And actually, a problem like that, it's like boiling the ocean, right? It's massive. You can't just create a product, and this is going to be used. So for about 18 months, we researched the problem and we tried to find an approach to solving the problem using cryptography. But then we needed to find our first use case. And Salena, who is my partner in the business and in life, yeah. Okay, so just to get that point across, and it is working, it's not a problem. Selena's background is more in the public sector. She was a teacher, career teacher, and she found an opportunity with local governments in the UK that were having a challenge with austerity to find new sources of value to give to the public, to charge them for new services. And we came up with one really small niche proposition where we felt there was a number of actors in that environment that would be motivated to use our product. That would be the public getting some value. That would be the local government getting some value, but also companies getting some value. So Salena worked hard on that, and maybe you want to just cover what that is.
Yeah, so that I started contacting local governments, and it was a life events use case. So in births, deaths, and marriages. Yes. When people go through those events, they then have to inform multiple organizations that they've changed their name, could even be a change of address, update of details. Now that, for anybody going through that, it takes time, money, and it's very frustrating. So that's the niche where we found it, and specifically in marriages.
Right.
So we went out. So when somebody gets married, they have to inform lots of organizations that they've changed their name. So that's the use case that I identified with the local governments. We started contacting them in September 2015. And Paul, who is a software entrepreneur as well as being a technologist, was adamant that this time when he did this project, he wasn't going to put fingers to keyboard until we actually found a route to market for the product. I contacted local government September 2015. Within 1 week, the phone was ringing.
And that is the key measure. That's the key measure. So you can write software for 2 years and really think you're cool in what you're doing, but then the phone never rings. So this time we were committed to making that phone ring first, and it just took a week. So there was so much interest. Yeah. There was so much interest. Within 6 weeks, we had to stop marketing the business case on the local government side, because they obviously recognised there was a genuine problem there, even though it sounds very sort of really small and, kind of not that Star Trek. But these are the problems that people actually have, and they're worth solving.
So we put a business case to the local governments around what we call a newlywed name change, because we wanted life events, again, is a bigger sector. And like Paul said, we wanted to get down to a really small use case. And so we thought we'll start with marriages. And the registrars were very interested in being part of that solution. So they started ringing us. We started going out to see them late September. So the doors were opening for us in local government. They were interested. They said, yes, they would like to be part of that. So that happened in the first 6 weeks. And we've got this also videoed on YouTube.
Yeah.
Kind of.
We were videoing ourselves going, amateur, I don't think it's going to work.
Amateur board.
Yeah.
So in the next 6 weeks, we said, right, now our focus has to be companies. Will companies be interested? Governments are interested. Also, with the local governments, what was also evidence is they did not doubt that the public were interested.
Because they deal with them every day.
Exactly.
And they see their frustrations. So a point I just should make, you see, so one of the things that we spotted was identity theft is where we started, but it isn't actually the identity theft that people really worry about. What they feel every day is the impact of the concern of that kind of crime. Yes. So all the processes, when they're interacting with organizations, are getting more and more difficult, more and more tricky. They're having to provide more and more documentary evidence that often they can't get anymore, like a bank statement. But who gets bank statements now? They'll come online, right?
Everything's digital.
So you've just got all these touch points, all these very complicated processes. So really what we've started to focus on was the activity itself, right? And so that gave us new novel ways of talking to the local authorities and talking to companies, etc. So when we spoke to the companies, because we needed them to play this important role, we needed to find a motivator. Actually, that's where it became a bit of a problem, because they were suffering at the time from so much cybercrime type problems that any company approaching them about a product, they were really closing all their technology doors. You know, they didn't like email, they didn't like any form of messaging, they didn't like anything, right? So as a small company with no influence, that would be impossible. And that's really where blockchain came in. And
can I just come in? I think we have to make it clear that what we were building and what we went to the local authorities was a product. Because you asked, were you building a blockchain? No, we were building a product that the customer could use, that the registrars could also use, and then the companies could access. So we built a product, and that product is an app. It's a mobile app leveraging
blockchain.
Or a DApp.
Which, so as I understand it, has become what was recently in test flight on the site prior to pre-sale. Is that correct?
Yes. Let's make a point on that. It's always available on Android. It is an app in beta. It's a minimum viable product. To have our products on iOS in the Apple Store, we're not allowed to call it beta. Really? So we refused. Yeah, we refused. You cannot put an app on the Apple Store and call it beta. And because it's a security product, because it's cryptography, because of where we are in the business, we do not feel that we would call it anything other than beta. Okay, so test flight is the means in which Apple allow you to provide access to a beta product. So it's available in beta, but unfortunately that means you have to request it from us, and we permission you to download it and use it on your device. With Android, you can just go to the Google store and download it.
So the product itself has been available on Google Play for Android since October 2016.
Wow. Do you have any? You guys are aware, yes, how uncommon that is still in the ICO space?
I'm aware of
Yes.
it more than Paul is,
Yes.
because I go to a lot of blockchain meetups, events. We've presented a number of them, and a few of these blockchain events kept asking us to come back, because they said the people that had been attending these events had never actually experienced using a blockchain DApp or app.
Huh.
We were being invited so that people, after the talk, people would download the DApp, and then they'd be creating an activity, have someone acknowledge it, have someone verify it. They'd never played around with a living, breathing blockchain DApp.
I think we were the first people at meetups, effectively, at the end of our meetup, the people that were there in the audience had downloaded it and were starting to play the roles and work with each other, which was fantastic. So in some ways, we have been a bit disappointed in that we're still pretty low profile. If we say where we are now, last year we were marketing to the corporates attending non-crypto events, just normal, customer experience events to show how you could improve your customers' experience with our product. Retail banking conferences. So we're not high profile in the crypto space, because these organizations are the ones that are going to have to be happy to interact with the blockchain, right? If someone's got a product and they're providing it to the public, that's great. But if you want them to be able to use it with the establishment, you really need to get them on board, right? So we focused on that, being small, totally personally funded. We're trying to find the smallest place we can focus our limited resources on to get traction. So we'd already developed a product, so we could confidently present that and have people use it. So by the end of last year, we had a couple of major financial institutions approach us, and their only concern was that we didn't have a fulfillment capability. So they helped us get a partner, which is Atos. So Atos is a major IT consulting company out of Europe. They have about $5 billion worth of government contracts here across. So they're going to be our partner and fulfillment partner for both the government and the private sector. So
frankly, that is fantastic. That is absolutely amazing, because it's unfortunate that your project, your product, and your company don't have a higher profile in the space. And it is, as you put it earlier, Paul, because you're not Star Trek-y, because it's not sci-fi, it's not romantic. However, I think the average investor, or I'm not sure if we can even call them investors in the crypto space, but the average pundit fails to recognize that we need the usable use cases for today's world, for blockchain to be sustainable into the future, to get us to the Star Trek-y stuff. So it's wonderful to hear you getting support from the private sector. That's huge.
Yeah, it is, and we have to let people know as well that these organisations are generally really committed to the blockchain. That they've recognised that they have these problems that are systemic. They're from technology that's evolved for 20 years, and they have to have a revolution internally. They can't evolve the current systems. They've got well-established processes, which are difficult to change, but what they need is something where it's completely different.
I'm going to roll back there, because I think for the viewers, they need to actually understand what the app does. Yeah. So in that first use case, I'll tell you what it does, is when somebody gets married, say someone who wants to get married, how it would work is the the registrar is going to inform them that if you're thinking of changing your name, there's this app called Zonafide, and we can help you use that to change your name. After they get married, the newlywed presents their activity, which is a name change activity, to the registrar. The registrar simply, it's phone to phone, reads the QR code. The registrar acknowledges that, yes, this marriage took place. Then the newlywed is able to share that notice with all their organizations. So it could be Aviva, it can be Barclays, it can be Legal and General, their utility companies. Just shares that notice with all these companies to say, I am going to change my name. These companies that receive that notice, check it's their customer, check it that, yes, it's an authoritative acknowledger, which is this registrar, and then they just revert to their normal customer service processes to service their customers' needs. Now, when we've been talking at conferences and these events, that's what the organizations are interested in, because like Paul said, we are surprised at how many of these organizations we're talking to have blockchain teams in-house. So, but they're looking for that first simple business use case where they can start using it. Now, I don't know any companies that don't have customers whose details they don't need to update. So for them, that is a really sweet spot, because they're not having to change entire processing systems. They just just receive this notice, check it's their customer, check that the acknowledger is the registrar, and then they just revert to their existing processes to service the customer. And that is what's opening doors for us in all of these companies.
So they get it's, you know, the buzzwords are, obviously it's implicitly secure, right? But that experience is frictionless. You know, it really is frictionless. And when it goes to the journey, it's so empowering for you as a, you know, customer, because now it just happens and you're controlling it, right? Rather than having to hand off all the time from one organization to another and be this postman between them, and all of the, you know, the kicking back from one to the other. Nice, controlled, simple process.
So that is what the app does.
I think the penny really just dropped for me, Salena, especially as you were talking, because there are a few things that I've noticed trending right now. The free economy right now seems to be taking a bit of a downturn. I have noticed in, at least in Australia, a lot of private enterprise trying to downsize to save bottom dollar. Your app on the blockchain allows them to free up a great deal, and really great deal of IT power.
Exactly.
But furthermore, it's fascinating to me just the level of empowerment here when it comes to time arbitrage for the average consumer. Because,
absolutely,
as Paul said, the amount of time you spend going back and forth, whether it be births, deaths, marriages, card registration, you spend the bulk of that time either A, in a line, or B, redoing the form that you accidentally put a tick instead of a cross. This makes so much sense.
Well, maybe we should have started with that. We should have said, look, this is what we are doing. And that might have put it in context for yourself and for the viewers.
Oh, but it's all a journey.
Yeah. So we've simplified that huge fractious journey for the customer down to this, you know, this small act of just being able to share the notice with multiple organizations. Saves them time, money, and frustration, like you said, of doing it themselves. And for the organizations, they're able to possibly automate the process, cut their costs, and give the customer a better experience.
Absolutely gorgeous. And to be honest, to help people understand what it is you guys do in a flash, I'm going to cut that little section out of this interview, out of this conversation, and just post that, because it's obviously on top of, not instead of. So now that we've reached a bit of a eureka moment about what it is that the company's doing and how transformative it can be given mass adoption, how was it received at this weekend's show? The what was it? The Crypto Investors Show in London?
Yeah, it was a great show, and what it encapsulated for me is we had that eureka moment with companies been really interested in blockchain. But now it's the eureka moment. Yesterday was the people are interested.
Gorgeous.
The queues were around the block, and I've been going to these, we've been going to the events for a number of years. And now when you go out there and think, geez, people are queuing around the block to get into this event. That was yesterday's eureka moment.
Isn't that absolutely huge for the awareness piece?
Yeah,
and not only was the queue around the corner, but you spoke, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I was speaking at the event. In fact, I got to speak twice, because they asked me to do as more people came in, they said, can you redo that one? So I was on a separate stage, the Kryptonite 1 stage. So I spoke again at the event, and there was a lot of interest. There was interest because, again, people are struggling to get their head around. There's a lot of Star Trek presentations, and then there's our presentation. And I liken it to the blockchain and crypto industry is a bit like electricity. People if you imagine electricity was new and people are trying to explain what electricity is, what Zonafide does is we're the kettle or the washing machine, because you can explain the technology till the cows go home. But if you want people to understand what it is, give them a product to use the damn thing with. And we are what we say, we do what we say on the tin. We enable you to secure your activities. So we're handing people a kettle and a washing machine.
Yeah. I remember we go back all the way to those, it's getting a few years now, when we set out with that problem of identity theft. And then we find a small use case. And then I think what's significant, we start off with this umbrella concept, identity theft, but really the actual problem is people's experience. And it's improving people's experience, making everything easier. So that is a big transition in how you focus on what you are as a business. You start looking at everyone's whole journey in things, not just a single thing. I am this person. That's only the beginning. So there are other blockchain-based startups in the space, all focused very much on identity. And it's great to have competitors in a young industry like this. Obviously, it means that there's a definite need because lots of people are recognizing a solution is required in this space. But what singles us out from the others is that focus on activities and the whole journey. Okay, and we see that evolving so that it's not just a single stamp you're getting, but maybe the activity. We've got this concept of developers building activities and then having a directory of activities that you can choose. And the activities are also signed by some authority, some domain specialist authority, that's saying that activity I'm happy to receive for a particular kind of event, such as in the UK, when you're doing planning applications for your house, it's a nightmare. So you can imagine getting an activity that's sponsored by your local government, that has all the different people for the inspection, for the planning, for the design, for the architecture, that are all already attested to, and you just pick them, go through your journey, they sign it off in the various stages, and then by the time it gets to the planning authority at the end, it's much faster for them to say, okay, this is a legitimate activity, and we are rejecting your planning application, or we're accepting planning. Right.
It concerns me for the planning process in the UK that the first bit you grabbed onto was rejecting.
Yeah. They don't reject much at the moment, but because you do have the concept of rejection. But rejection is important because there's a whole follow-up cycle to that. So when something's rejected, the activity can then go through the process of appealing, right, and have it all done automatically and rather than just starting from scratch again. So that's our Star Trek. It's boring, possibly, but our Star Trek is having these activities that are much more long-lived than just identity verification.
I disagree with you wholeheartely. I don't believe it's boring. I think that it is far more realistic in that. Oh, sorry, Salena?
I said, thanks, Andy.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. You go back to the toaster and kettle analogy, right? Like Tesla with the Tesla coil in the corner of the hall is all fantastic. It looks great. What am I going to do with that? I can't cart that home. but I can take a light bulb, plug it in and use it, right?
Exactly.
You know, so functionality for people that understand the blockchain, not as currency, but as technology, is far more exciting. Functionality is far more exciting. If anybody tells you it's boring, frankly, tell them to jog on. So, while Paul was talking there, Salena, I think you had a brainwave and you were going to jump in with something. Can you remember what that was?
Yeah, the brainwave was when Paul is is explaining how our activities can help people. I liken it to have a passport. So if you have your own passport, you go seamlessly from country to country. They're not holding your information. You have your passport. You walk through countries. That's what this Zonafide digital wallet does for people. It enables them to seamlessly walk through their interactions with different organizations. They are able to verify themselves using their social and professional networks, and the organizations service their needs.
But I think that's possibly one thing we haven't touched on, Andy, if I could just add. So it's just the journey that we've taken in the conversation. So there are 3 principles. 2 that I've mentioned was the middle one, activities, and the third one was related to the blockchain, which is collaboration. We see that as a universally accessible trust platform. But the first one, which is really the most important one, is when we were doing our analysis, and we did a lot of workshops with the local community. We had them in playing role games. We'd have like 40 people come in, not know what they were doing, and recreate this whole murder mystery thing in our house. And then people would walk around trying to figure, and we observed them to see how they behaved, okay? And the number one thing that we learned from that was that someone always said, I knew they wouldn't do that. If I'd have known, I would know that they wouldn't have done that.
Take up my 5 mobile phones. Or
I know my friend wouldn't have done that, or my daughter wouldn't have done that. So it's people, activities, and collaboration. So the number one is that it's not just identity, because we involve a number of people. So far we've talked about people being professionals like a registrar, or some domain specialist, some official, some authority. But the smallest and most important network you have is your own family and friends and professional circle. So because everyone's used to using their mobile phone, because everyone's communicating all the time now as a preference on their messaging services, etc. We knew it's possible now that when you're creating activity and you want to assure and verify that it's you can volunteer a few people out of your professional social network to them in advance. And so for a lot more applications, you've volunteered them, and then when you do an activity, let's say it's increase your overdraft limit in your bank, right? You tell your bank, I want those kind of changes to include not just me, but these people from my social circle. Right. So when you volunteer the activity, they can immediately check that there's 1 or 2 other attestations that you had a genuine intent to do that, right? So just by adding 1 extra person, your partner, daughter, father, whatever, just by adding 1 makes it much more difficult, or significantly less likely you'll get identity theft, because someone's got to get your information and your details and your signing ability in our product, and someone else's as well. And as soon as you do that, it gets harder and harder and harder. So our product very much, although we haven't mentioned it much, is focused around all these peoples and these interactions, and using those to make it very, very difficult to get someone's identity.
Although we've started in this little use case, the Zonafide Wallet does have many other applications, like Paul is saying, with say cars, but house purchase payments, securing those, KYC, notarization, changing details with your bank. So we're starting with that use case on which we've got the public, the government authorities, and the companies on board, and then we're just going to grow out that exponentially. And that's why on our website we say there's a global opportunity with this product, and our partner Atos already sees how they can use it in different applications with their different corporate clients rather. So the future is bright. And coming back to the social media question that you just asked, Andy, our aim was always that we can make the Zonafide digital wallet, make it as easy to assure someone an activity is genuine as easy as sending a message or a picture using Instagram or WhatsApp. So we've got the app built, and the next iteration of the app will be to use it, make it as easy to use as other social media messaging tools.
On that point, this is an important point for viewers.
We only have a few minutes left.
Yeah, for all people in software development,
keeping an eye on it,
particularly these complex things with a lot of plumbing underneath, your first baby, you're always so depressed, it's so ugly. Right? So ugly. You know, oh, what happened? I had such, you know, but the truth is, it's there now, right? But we do need to spruce it up a bit.
Make it put a bit of makeup on.
You know, but it's a bit of an ugly baby, but it does work, and it is being used in the proof of concepts.
Why don't you take a moment just to plug the ICO phase itself? Let me know and let the audience know where you are in pre-sale or ICO main phase, etc., dates, all of that.
Yeah. So at the moment we launched the ICO on Monday, 5th of March. So we were still in the first week, and we are in the private sale period now.
Yes.
And then the public pre-sale starts on the 6th of April, and the public sale starts on the 21st of April. So it's 2 weeks for the pre-sale, 2 weeks for the public sale, and at the moment we're in the private sale period.
Now, for the private sale, is that limited to registered investors?
Okay, that's a good question. Obviously, my background is investment banking, and one of the reasons we've taken so long, having had a product, to go to market with a product is that we engaged lawyers last September out of London, CMS Law, who are a well-known law firm, and we've been working on the tokenization underneath the product. So originally we didn't design this product to have a token, so I had to look at the ecosystem. There's obviously some ambiguity with the states, so our terms and conditions does obviously say that it's not open to US investors, with that ambiguity there. So there isn't any issue. We're not doing KYC, and we're not doing AML either. We are doing some things with regards to AML, but we are not legally obliged to. That is something we are volunteering to do.
Marvelous, marvelous. I think that a lot of people at least used to view KYC as almost a point of transparency. So it's really important that a lot of the average investors know, because we've come to expect it, that KYC is not 100% required. In fact, for ICOs in the UK, in the very least, as I understand it, it's a choice, not a requirement.
It is a choice, and we feel, because of where we come from, is we feel that people shouldn't be giving their data up. It's very vulnerable. I mean, what you're being asked for, even people in our own team who have got involved and participated, they suddenly came to me going, wow, I've got to actually hold my passport and my credit card and photograph myself and give it to some company in, I don't know where.
Korea.
And I said, why do you need to do that? The fact you're doing that is opening yourself up to a serious problem. So it isn't necessary if it's in the UK. You know, we've spoken to HMRC, the FCA, you know, and over a 6-month period, we cannot find any reason to do it other than it is seen to be the thing to do. But the thing to do means that we have a vulnerability that we're not prepared to accept for our customers.
Guys, you have absolutely nailed the understanding for anybody that can get through this time format. I think that if people can have the attention span to watch all of this, you'll be getting investors 100%. I plan to invest after listening to you both, so I'm hoping that other people follow suit and follow that influence. But before we sign off, is there anything going on in the blockchain space that you would like to discuss or air out?
I think,
I wouldn't say we're into the observing everything that's going on in the space, but I suppose the thing that comes to mind in the last couple of months is, you know, the what some people see as the reversal of the prices coming down.
Yes.
And the key thing I want to say about that is we did get some, which we were very grateful for, some Bitcoin about 6 months ago, and we're still well over double in the value that we received then. So there's this retrenchment that's gone on. You know, I don't see a big issue with it. I know I saw something about the this whole historical problem with Mt. Gox. Okay, but I would say down on the Bitcoin space, which is the most contentious space, I suppose. But in reality, once that stuff is dumped, it's still a scarce resource, right? So long term, there's still a reason that people are happy to consider Bitcoin as a platform holding value. There are some real good, practical, obvious reasons why you might want to use it as some store of value. You know, the fact you don't have to put gold bars in your pocket to, you know, and fly around the world, it's really uncomfortable, right? Never mind whether it's allowed, but it's just difficult to do. Same with cash, the same with any of those things. Just from a practical point of view, moving from one place to another, the simplicity of sharing some statement of value that you trust is still there in the product. The whole fever about the value and treating it as an investment product, I'll just repeat again, it's still well over what it was 6 months ago, and I don't see any other investment product that has the same.
Well said. Well said. Well, for those that have made it this far.
Oh, yeah.
Massively, right?
No, it's great. It's absolutely fantastic. I love content. I mean, I'm a creator. I'm a YouTuber. I love content. And thinking about the iTunes environment as well, there's nothing like putting on a long form podcast of the area of your interest and just, you know, going off about your daily activities. So this is absolutely spot on. Paul, Salena, how can people contact you? How can they keep up with what you're doing or with the project?
The best thing right now is to join our Telegram channel, which is t.me Zonafide Wallet. All one word, Zonafide Wallet. Obviously, email is info@zonafide, but .net. Twitter is @Zonafide Wallet, and of course, information is also on our website www.zonafide.net.
So I hope you put those in the credits at the bottom, right?
Yeah, Telegram's the biggie.
Yeah, but the main thing, obviously, with all of these ICOs, we keep the channels to a minimum. We're just focused on that one, the one Telegram channel, Zonafide Wallet. We have a Zonafide Wallet news, which is read only, okay? And then we've just got that website, www.zonafide.net. They're the main places you'll find us.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll make sure they're in the description below for everybody that's interested. Paul and Salena, thank you so much for your time and for the education.
Okay,
Thanks.
no problem.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Thank you
Keep
for
in
your
touch,
time.
Andy. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, bye.
And that is all we have for you in interview 1, part 1 on 360 Decentral with Paul and Salena Worrall of Zonafide. So don't forget, there is the part 2 coming to you soon. Within 2 days of release of this video, it shall be up on March 18th. At least that's the date in my part of the world. And there you'll get to listen to, you know, Paul's strange habit of continuously being on the doorstep of innovation. But I'm not going to give too much away about that one just yet. So until next time, this has been 360 Decentral, and I'll catch you in the next one.